border control, actually how our agencies and police work together much strongly, and it's also an issue I talked about with Barrawonga as well at the PIF, and saying that's an issue that we do need to be talking about as a Pacific Island forum.
Are you aware that MFAC decided we're going to go ahead with a drug rehabilitation program here with Salvation Army, and then decided not to, and decided to concentrate on climate change? So how can we get that?
Yeah, look, I mean, what we were talking about, I was just sharing our own experience of rehabilitation programs in New Zealand. That we've got some good examples of programs that work, and we struggle to get good practice across the whole of the country. We spent a little bit of time talking rehabilitation, but a large part of it was actually about the security. Is that we've got outside influences pushing drugs into the Pacific, and actually we need to do a better job and coordinate in a much better way and build capability to actually push back against that.
Don't we need to do a much better job here in Fiji with the people here?
Well, in the sense of
rehabilitation.
Well, yes, there is rehabilitation work to do as well, and we're very open for sharing any of our support in that space as well. But job number one at the moment is where we clearly have challenges with a flow of drugs coming in through Fiji out through to Australia and New Zealand, and within Fiji challenges with a flow of drugs coming in through Fiji out through to Australia and New Zealand, and within Fiji as you've identified there as well. So we're very open to helping if there's anything that we've learnt. I was explaining how we monitor pea use by sharing wastewater data is what we look at to see what's happening in different communities within New Zealand. I was sharing the New Zealand experience, which I think we've got work to do ourselves actually in that space, in the rehabilitation space. But the big issue is actually about security and about border control and about monitoring and surveillance and how we actually push back hard against it.
You said there were outside forces. Who are those outside forces?
Well, I mean, you've got drug cartels clearly coming from it looks like Latin America, potentially Southeast Asia, but across the Pacific, we just don't want to see a rise of transnational crime, human trafficking. We need to be on the guard of those things. We need to be on the front foot, and we need to be proactive about those issues.
Prime Minister, during your meeting with the PIF leader this afternoon, did you discuss the kind of geostrategic environment, and what was the takeaways you got from him about how PIF wants to see the region go forward?
It was a good conversation actually. The Secretary General was only 4 days into the job, but he has a very good team there as well, and I was able to talk with them as well. But I guess the key point was actually this notion that I've been talking about, which is the centrality of PIF. And it's this notion that essentially regional challenges need to be solved by regional leaders, and Pacific challenges need to be solved by Pacific leaders. And it's a very similar construct that we have with ASEAN, with this, as I said yesterday, with the Southeast Asian nations. So, we in our short time canvassed, the drug issue. We talked about strategic competition, from multiple powers and how we deal with that. But more importantly, we spoke about the centrality of PIF and actually being able, programs like PACER Plus, for example, which is a way in which we could deal with some labour mobility issues that we have across the region as well. So, those were the sorts of broad brushstroke topics that we talked about. Obviously, we go to PIF and Tonga, and I think all of those issues will be reappraised and rediscussed there.
Are you satisfied that some of these countries, investing in the region are respecting the centrality of PIF?
My conversations with all major power countries that have come into the region, whether it's been the US, whether it's been China, whether it's been France, the EU, the UK, India, Japan, has been, look, they are fantastic aid partners and development partners for many of the Pacific Island nations, but it's just important that they come through the front door, which is and work with PIF, given that it's a very important body that I want to see esteemed, and I want to see actually managing the affairs in the Pacific.
Transit visa.
The Fijian Prime Minister briefly seemed to express some sort of support about New Zealand joining Pillar 2 and having wider benefits for the Pacific. What did you take away from his response to that?
Look, I mean, he's made, I think, public comments well before I became Prime Minister around AUKUS. As I've said to you before, broadly speaking, I think AUKUS is an initiative that will actually help strengthen security and stability in the broader Indo-Pacific region. As I've said to you, there's no change from the previous administration. We are genuinely exploring the potentiality of whether there is participation or not participation for New Zealand under AUKUS Pillar 2. That would be the appropriate and the right thing for us to do, and that process will take some time to work it through.
Did AUKUS come up in your bilateral?
No, it wasn't. I mean, we talked a little bit about the defence ties between Fiji and New Zealand, which are long-standing. Obviously, a lot of Fijian military have been trained at Waihuru in different points at different times in history. And also we have strong relationships still here on the ground in Fiji, as well as you're seeing with our police forces and with our defence forces. And so long may that continue. And we talked more at the bilateral level rather than the border level.
You mentioned how you and the fifth leader talked about how to engage with, I suppose, world actors coming into the Pacific. Was there any discussion around how PIF and or New Zealand specifically engages with those entities as they have further interests in the Pacific?
No, I mean, I just shared the New Zealand experience, that we, I shared our experience working with, say, for example, China, where we have massive cooperation in the areas of trade and climate and people-to-people connections, and we've got big ambition in that space, but equally, we often have differences, and, it's a long-standing relationship, and consistently, predictably, publicly and or privately, we will raise those with the Chinese in this case, and it's the same with every other relationship we have. That's what having an independent foreign policy is actually all about. And so, I talked about that as our own experience. You've seen examples recently where we called out publicly, cyber interference and on our parliamentary services system from China. And so, I said that's completely consistent with how we manage that relationship as an illustration of how we manage all our relationships.
Did Mr. Warner apprise you of any, I suppose, immediate or imminent concerns that he had with respect to actions within the Pacific from those world powers? Or was there any discussion about...
No, not really. It was just a broad acknowledgement of geostrategic competition, increasing geostrategic competition. But it was a broad conversation, about the broad thematics that we see across the region. Particularly, we talked about New Caledonia in a little bit more detail. We talked about the drug challenge we just started to talk about, which is a huge one and a complex one that we need to be well appraised of and on the front foot on. And just more about how we actually advance the economic interests of the Pacific as well, and the possibility about labour mobility. We spent a bit of time talking about that as well.
Any planning as far as messaging goes?
No, obviously in fairness, he's new to the job. He's only been there day 4, and that's why I took the opportunity to just quickly have a conversation. But Tonga PIF will be a key meeting. Obviously, New Caledonia I think will be the dominant issue.
You had a big old swig of that kava last night. How did that taste?
Oh, it was great. I was really honoured because that was a very formal ceremony. That was, I think the Prime Minister explained to me, that's the first one he's had at that level of formality since he's become Prime Minister, and it was a way of them showing the respect that they have for our relationship as well. And so, I think as you've seen, the hospitality that we've received, the attention that we've received from the Prime Ministers, firstly in Niue and also here in Fiji, just speaks to how strongly they feel about the relationship. And, we're all focused on doing the right thing by our people, which is that we want to see the people of New Zealand do well, we want to see the people of Fiji do well, and where we can work together on advancing those causes, that's what we want to do.
You seemed to grimace a little bit after you drank it. Are you sure it was great? Your face...
No, it was great. No, it was fine. No, I don't know what to...
the roasted pork and...
Sorry?
The roasted pork.
I'm not sure what happened to the pig. I did ask the Prime Minister, I said, where did that come from? And he said they actually grow them in the prisons, or raise them in the prisons. So I'm sure someone who needed the meal got it.
Prime Minister, on a lighter note,
yes.
I had my camera trained on your face during the ceremony, and as the kava was being prepared, you had maybe a look of a bit of hesitancy or nervousness. Kava's not known to taste particularly delicious. In 1 or 2 words, what was going through your mind?
Well, actually, I got to be honest, I think that's more you guys than me, because I was pretty relaxed through that ceremony, to be honest. I was really enjoying it, and I was actually trying to understand the meaning of the ceremony as well. And it was, and the Prime Minister was good, giving me a few pointers about what was actually going on and what was the conversation. In many ways, there were some similarities to what we see on a marae. Actually a speaker from one side, a speaker from another side. The whale tooth being transposed between us in order to move it between speakers. So, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was, very relaxed about it and really enjoyed it. I thought it was a real privilege and a great honour. And for Amanda and I, we did thoroughly enjoy it.
So you relaxed after drinking, because they say kava makes you more relaxed.
Mate, I was fine. I wouldn't get too hung up on the kava. I don't know why you were obsessed about it, but I'd just say to you, but no, we had a wonderful evening last night as well with, Mrs. Rambuka and the Prime Minister and Amanda and myself and some of our team, and it was a really lovely dinner. Actually, it was a really good dinner, and it was a good way to build a relationship and rapport with each other.
This boosts the two-way trade.
Sorry.
Party Māori. Do you support a public inquiry into what's going on?
Oh, look, we'll continue to look into that, but I mean, they are very serious allegations. It's important that they are appropriately investigated. I know that there's some, there's been, some investigation that's been kicked off, as I understand it, back on the weekend. We'll let that run its course, but we'll continue to give that some thought.
So do you think the Auditor General should get involved?
Again, those are conversations that we'll be having very shortly.
So concerns were raised with a number of organisations. Have they done enough to make sure this doesn't spiral?
Well, again, as I said, pretty serious allegations. Important that there is comprehensive investigation. And I'm not going to say too much more while there's an investigation undergoing.
Just to clarify, there is the possibility of a public inquiry on the table until you see the outcome of the current investigations. Yeah, look, I mean, at the moment, there is an investigation going on. We'll let that run its course. We'll give some thought as to whether there's anything further that's needed. We haven't got a position on that, and we haven't made a decision on that. But we'll continue to monitor it pretty closely. I just think, they're pretty serious allegations. It is appropriate that we'll work out that they are investigated properly at whatever level that may need to be at, and who does that to be determined. But ultimately, let's let this investigation go through at this point.
Is every department doing its own investigation that has been caught up in this?
Again, we want to make sure that the initial investigation that's been, I think the police have been informed. Let them go through their process. We'll work out if there's anything further that's needed. We'll have those conversations in the coming days.
Just throwing a business. This morning you went to Tower. What do you make of that? And isn't that effectively outsourcing New Zealand jobs?
No, what it is actually it's really fantastic because there is really good teams and work that's taking place in New Zealand as well. But equally, that's a way in which 300 highly skilled people in Fiji stay here in Fiji as well, and can actually are afforded an opportunity that wouldn't exist because a New Zealand company is choosing to expand into the Pacific. And while it has been here for 150 years here in Fiji, obviously it's wanting to grow into other parts across the Pacific. And I thought there was two takeaways from that. One was, what a great company and great culture being built here. But the second thing was when you started to see some of those insurance products that had been innovated here, when you think about places like Westport and some of the challenges that we have in New Zealand around climate adaptation, those kinds of insurance policies I thought were quite interesting, for us to be able to take an innovation from New Zealand, and I'm sure they'll be thinking about that from Fiji back to New Zealand. So, look, I think that's a win-win-win all round.
On this boost to two-way trade, did you and Prime Minister Ambuga discuss specific areas in which you want to get it to that 2 billion number? Well,
again, there's a massive amount of tourism that takes place here. There's 200,000 Kiwis that come and holiday here, and it's a fantastic tourism proposition. And, Fijians have done incredibly well in that sector, and actually you see them across the Pacific now. We actually met some Fijians actually in Niue who had come across from Fiji because they're skilled in that area in tourism, and it's a great tourism product. So, they have fully recovered and are growing post their pre-COVID numbers, which is absolutely fantastic given it devastated their economy so much. But equally, they are very determined to continue to expand and create new vectors of opportunity. And it is truly, given the population, given the size of the economy here, that is the way forward here is economic development within Fiji. So, whether it's been business processing that's taking place here, as you saw at Tower today, I think there's a number of other we talked a lot last night about other products like cocoa and sugar and chocolate, there's a number of products that we were saying there's huge opportunity here. I think what you're seeing is, my sense from the Prime Minister was that, he really has a great desire to actually lift living standards and quality of life here. And actually, in my conversation with the President this morning, but also with the Prime Minister, there's a real focus on going forward and actually growing this economy and opening it up to other sectors so it's not solely reliant on tourism.
Prime Minister, last couple, guys. Thank you. You promised during the election campaign not to cut sick leave provisions. So is the announcement by ACT yesterday on changes to the Holidays Act that will see part-time workers have sick leave reduced another broken promise?
No, not at all. What that's about is the Minister for Workplace Relations in our government has quite rightly, and we identified this very early on, because it's been a major issue for businesses across New Zealand for a number of years now, is to actually go out and actually consult on the Holidays Act. So all that Brooke Van Velden has announced is a consultation to actually talk to the business community, talk to all the relevant stakeholders to get a sense of how do we make the Holidays Act, which is a pretty complex piece of legislation and is frankly a bit of a nightmare for businesses to navigate because it's not always that clear, to get greater clarity in place. And so that's a full eyes open consultation, no predetermined outcomes, no definitely not. It's just an opportunity to actually say we know that's an area of irritation. We know that's not a very clear piece of legislation, and we want to see that, opening that up for consultation to hear what others have to say.
Did you know that ACT were going to make that announcement?
Yes. It's not ACT. It's actually a minister of the coalition government, and Brooke Van Velden, who is our Minister for Workplace Relations.
Last couple of guys, we've got to go.
Sorry?
Why would you consult on something like sick leave if you promised not to?
No, we're consulting on the Holidays Act, the broader aspect. That's one component of it.
Why not take it out of the review?
Well, no, because we want to consult with the entirety of the Holidays Act. It's known and has been known for a very long period of time to be a very complicated and complex piece of legislation. This is genuinely a consultation exercise to actually go out to the stakeholders and say, righto, what's working well, what's not working well, is there a way to make this much cleaner, much simpler, less complex, so that businesses and others have much more certainty about, there's quite a lot of complication around calculation of payments and things that just that they actually genuinely just needs a review.
Can you just promise that sick leave settings won't change?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll go through a complete consultation process. There's many parts to the Holiday Act, but as I've said before, my position remains. Yep.
Can you
did the topic of deep sea mining come up in your conversation today?
No, it didn't. No, we didn't talk about that. We talked a lot about, as I said, the other issues that were more about security and economic interests.
What's the stance on deep sea mining?
Well, I mean, we've got obligations. Everyone's got obligations. We'll continue to monitor very closely. What I'd say to you is, back home in New Zealand, it's if you wanted to move to a climate future, towards our climate emission goals, a lot of that does require us to extract lithium to make sure that we can do EV batteries that makes that transition. When you think about solar panels and minerals that are involved with that, but deep sea mining, we need some serious thought before we do anything there.
Prime Minister, we're going to go to lunch, guys. Into the Pacific.
Sorry?
It's your first push out into the Pacific after becoming PM. How's that going? What's that sort of global reset doing for you?
Oh, look, I mean, as you said, I mean, we are resetting our foreign affairs policy. You've had massive intensity from myself, from Winston Peters, from Todd McClay, from Judith Collins. Our priority have been Australia and the Pacific, Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia and India and also China. So, we're going to continue to have our profile within the Indo-Pacific. We want to be relevant. We think New Zealand has a lot to offer to the conversations that are happening in our region. And we're going to very much advance our security and our economic interests and the interests of our national interests. Absolutely. We'll be back for Tonga. We'll be back in Samoa for CHOGM. And there'll be ongoing discussion of all the issues in the Pacific region too.
Prime Minister, was there any more support requested by the Prime Minister for the Fijian government? I saw the Finance Minister follow you up here.
Sorry?
I saw the Finance Minister follow you up here.
Yes, I've got a series of engagements with ministers at lunch and then back in dinner tonight as well.
Did they request for any more funding apart from what you have announced?
No, we've talked about a number of support, other supportive packages which I didn't talk about beyond the transit announcement and the trade target. But there's a number of things around climate relocation trust investments, some other things to support the work that's happening around economic strategy and good governance around economic policy as well. So, those are things that we've made commitments to and will continue to do so. But no, nothing specific. Cool. Okay, thanks team. Appreciate your help.
Cheers. Okay, thanks.